All right, so this is a suggestion via Patreon. The name of the video is Africa is splitting into two continents and most people are not aware. All right, let's check it out. Right, guys, let's get it. Let's see where this takes us.
Less than 2 decades ago, the ground began to split open in Africa, with fractures opening up across different countries, even splitting a man's house into two. Since then, it's been obvious that Africa is undergoing a continental rift. Such a rift occurs when a continent is set to break into 2 or more. When this happens, new continents, islands, and oceans will be formed, and our world will never be the same again. Why is Africa splitting up? What is causing the land to be cut open? What is the implication on Africans and the world in general? Join us in this video as we discuss how Africa is splitting into 2 continents, and most people don't even know about it.
Guys, I can tell you right now, I mean, it would make sense if Africa was to continue to split, since it's been splitting since the beginning of our time and way before then, right? It just has been splitting. This is why South America exists, North America, and all the other continents. Everything is just basically been breaking off of the central point, which is Africa, right? But I can definitely tell you right now, I'm not sure that this would even happen in any of our lifetimes. Like, us watching this? No chance. Well, let's go.
In 2005, images and reports began to emerge of a continental rift happening in East Africa. A continental rift is a term given to situations where a continent seems to be breaking apart or separating into 2 or more. This is a normal occurrence everywhere in the world.
Right.
In fact, every single continent in our world today came as a result of rifts and shifting of tectonic plates. To understand what's happening, the result will be the splitting of the world's 2nd largest continent in 2. This would be an exciting phenomenon for geologists and every other scientist, as there's been nothing close to this since South America and Africa were divided into different continents hundreds of millions of years ago. However, if it does happen, it cannot happen in our lifetime, as it would take about 5 to 10 million years for there to be a clean separation. A clean breakaway of the Somalian plate from the...
And guys, I'm almost positive we're probably not even going to be here to see it. And what I mean by we, I mean humans. I am not sure that's going to be a thing. Or we're not even going to be recognizable.
Nubian plate might not be the only possible scenario here. One possibility is having most of the Somalian plate separated from the rest of the continent. This partial separation will lead to the formation of a new sea between the 2 land masses. This new landmass will include Somalia, Eritrea, Djibouti, and the eastern parts of Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, and Mozambique. There is also the possibility of only eastern Tanzania and Mozambique separating. Countries that will benefit from this rift are those that are currently landlocked, like Ethiopia and Uganda. The introduction of a coastline, from the emergence of a new ocean, will improve their economy greatly with new opportunities for trade and production.
The thing about one of the countries he's mentioned, if Eritrea does split, well, I'm sure the turmoil there would actually probably... Yeah, bro, we're not going to be there. Never mind. Yeah, okay, listen, they split, then they just split. Because, guys, Eritrea right now is pretty hectic for the people living there, guys. Basically, North Korea of Africa, basically.
According to Ken McDonald, a marine geophysicist and a professor emeritus at the University of California, Santa Barbara, the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea will flood in over the Afar region and into the East African Rift Valley and become a new ocean, and that part of East Africa will become its separate small continent. Reports show that, although the rift is obvious to the eyes, it is not growing fast enough for there to be a complete rift. Right now, it's growing apart at about 1/4 of an inch every year. Ken McDonald further says that the rifting right now is very slow, about the rate that one's toenails grow. But how do these rifts form? Why it is still the subject of debate among geologists and geophysicists, one popular model has assumed dominance. The assumption is that there is an increase in the heat flow coming from deep inside the Earth, and this is causing what is called thermal bulges that can be seen in central Kenya and the Afar region of north-central Ethiopia. These bulges are easily identifiable on any topographic map as elevated highlands. As these bulges form, they stretch and fracture the outer brittle crust into a series of normal faults. Bulges, for most geologists and geophysicists, are caused by the heat exerted on the Earth's crust by mantle plumes that are under the continent. A mantle plume is an area under the Earth's crust where magma is hotter than surrounding magma. The heat from this extra hot magma causes the melting and thinning of the overlying crust, which causes the bulges to expand and fracture. This could also lead to widespread volcanic activity on Earth's surface above the plume. Usually, the stretching of the thermal bulges is often preceded by huge volcanic eruptions that flow over large areas. These eruptions often are exposed on the edges of the rift. Some geologists refer to these eruptions.
Bro, some of the footage you're using is like known to be not Africa. I just want you to know that, sir. Creating a video, at least.
As
pretty sure I just saw Yosemite.
Flood basalt.
Yosemite.
In this kind of eruption, the lava erupts from along the fractures of the bulges instead of erupting at individual volcanoes. The lava then runs over the land as though it is water during a flood. One feature that is obvious in the ongoing rift in Africa is the presence of a rift valley. A rift valley is a lowland region that is formed when two tectonic plates move apart or rift. Rift valleys are often found on land and at the bottom of the ocean. In the ocean, they are created by the process of seafloor spreading. Rift valleys are different from river valleys and glacial valleys in that they are created by the movement of tectonic plates and not the process of erosion. Many rift valleys are part of triple junctions. This happens when three tectonic plates meet at about 120 degrees angles. When this happens, two arms of the triple junction often split to form an entire ocean. The third arm, a failed rift, sometimes called an Aulacogen, may become a rift valley. An example of this is the Atlantic Ocean. The Atlantic Ocean is a result of a triple junction that started in what is now the Gulf of Guinea on the west coast of Africa. Two arms of a triple junction on the supercontinent Pangaea created the ocean, while the Aulacogen formed the rift valley known as the Benue Trough through what is now southern Nigeria. Sometimes rift valleys can also be found underwater. These often divide long mountain ranges and are called mid-ocean ridges. This is formed when tectonic plates move apart from each other at mid-ocean ridges.
I'm guessing similar to the Mariana Trench?
This is formed when tectonic plates move apart from each other at mid-ocean ridges. Magma from the mantle swells up and hardens as it contacts the frigid sea, forming a new oceanic crust at the bottom of the rift valley. In the northern mid-Atlantic ridge, the North American plate and the Eurasian plate are splitting apart at a rate of about 1 inch per year. Over tens of millions of years, the mid-Atlantic ridge has formed rift valleys as wide as 9 miles. In the Pacific Ocean, the east...
Yeah, I'm not sure 9 miles equals a valley anymore, bro. That may just be two separate mountain ranges nowadays, guys. But either way.
Pacific rise has created rift valleys where the Pacific plate is separating from the North American plate, Cocos plate, Nazca plate, and Antarctic plate. Typical of many underwater rift valleys, the East Pacific rise is spotted with hydrothermal vents. These vents are created by geologic activities underneath the underwater rift valley, causing superheated water and fluids to be released into the water body. A rift valley close by and similar to the East African Rift is the Great Rift Valley. The Great Rift Valley is arguably the most well-known rift valley on the planet. This rift valley stretches from the Middle East in the north to Mozambique in the south. The Great Rift Valley is well known for its being geologically active, with volcanoes, hot springs, geysers, and frequent earthquakes. The East African Rift has two main branches, the Western Rift and the Gregory Rift. These two rift valleys are dotted by volcanoes, from the Erta Ale in Ethiopia to Mount Kenya in Kenya, although it is now an extinct stratovolcano. Other spotted volcanoes include Olduvai Lengai in Tanzania, Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, which is a dormant stratovolcano, and Mount Nyiragongo in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Western Rift is also known as the Albertine Rift, or the Lake Albert Rift, and it contains the East African Great Lakes. The Western Rift is one of the most biodiverse areas in Africa. Its features include snow-capped mountains, savannas, highland forests, and a couple of exotic lakes. On the other hand, the Gregory Rift, named after the geologist who first mapped it, stretches from the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea downward to Mount Kilimanjaro. One of the most important features of the Gregory Rift is the Afar Triple Junction. The Afar Triple Junction is where the Horn of Africa straddles the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden in the Arabian Sea. At this junction, the Arabian...
Guys, there needs to be some type of railing or something that can actually stop people from falling into that. It looks wide open, and obviously if there are people there, as you see in this B-roll footage here, it's most likely an area that is highly used. So that obviously brings up the level of danger. Please put some guard railing or something around there, guys.
Plate, Nubian plate, and Somali plate are all moving away from each other. What is noticeable is that the two arms of the Afar Triple Junction continue to widen through the process of seafloor spreading. One of the arms is extending into the Red Sea, and the other is extending into the Gulf of Aden. As these rifts continue, the tiny valley created by the Gregory Rift could get so depressed that the Arabian Sea floods it. If this happens, this new strait, the Horn of Africa, would become a continental island, just like Madagascar or New Zealand. An interesting thing to note about the East African Rift is that, although the same process developed both the West...
What's interesting is that it actually looks like it's moving fast. Like, this is not something that took 3 years to create, guys. I mean, I get it. It's saying about an inch a year or so, guys, but this is not an inch a year. This looks like a sinkhole almost was formed. Like, look at how this tree here fell. Like, this is not something that's fast moving.
Thing to note about the East African Rift is that...
No, this is something that's faster than this guy is saying, is what I mean here.
Although the same process developed both the Western and Gregory branches, they actually do have very different characters. In the Gregory Rift, what we see is greater volcanic activity, while the Western Rift has much deeper basins that have large lakes and plenty of sediments. One of these lakes is the Lake Tanganyika, which is the second deepest lake in the world. Another is the Lake Malawi. With basalt eruptions and active crevice formation being observed, geologists have recently had to observe the East African Rift system to see how ocean basins form on land. This is an exciting thing for scientists, as it gives them an opportunity to directly study how rifts work. This is an opportunity that they can't get anywhere else in the world, as most rifts have progressed till they are filled with sediments or are underwater. The East African Rift system, on the other hand, is an excellent field laboratory to study a modern, actively developing rift system.
Right.
Lakes are also, many times, one of the features of a rift valley system. Rift lakes are formed when fresh water fills up a rift valley. An example of one such formation is when the North American plate began to rift over 1 billion years ago. As the rifting continued, a triple junction was formed right in the middle of the young continent, and a deep rift valley developed. Soon, and over the years, fresh water accumulated in this rift valley, and the result was the creation of a lake. However, the rift failed and was completed after many millions of years. The continent survived the rift, with the arms unable to break off to form a new ocean. Today, the remains of that ancient rift lake, Lake Superior, rest on top of one of the oldest and deepest rift valleys in the world. Another example of a rift lake is the...
Yeah, bro, yeah, that's absolutely going to turn into some type of, probably at first a river, most likely, or a lake of sorts, most likely a river, then eventually turn into an ocean. I mean, I've never seen this in real life, so I can't really personally say how deep it is. And I've also never even studied this thing, right? So a lot of this information that I am encountering is like brand new stuff that I'm now going to have to probably dig into and obsess over for the next month, most likely.
Lake Baikal, the rift lake that is over the Baikal Rift Valley in
most
Siberia.
likely.
Lake Baikal is the deepest and oldest freshwater lake in the world. The deepest parts of this rift lake are around 5,387 feet. Additionally, layers of soft sediments have slowly been collected and deposited on the lake's bed over the past 25 million years ago. In fact, the actual floor of the Rift Valley is more than 3 miles deep. Lake Baikal also holds the record for the largest volume of fresh water in the world, with the volume coming in at a massive 5,700 cubic miles. Another example of a rift lake formation is the Dead Sea in the Jordan Rift Valley. While the Dead Sea is not the world's deepest lake, the depth of the Jordan Rift easily makes it the lowest land elevation in the world. The surface of the Dead Sea is 1,407 feet below sea level, while the lake still goes about 997 feet deep into the ground. However, in contrast to Lake Baikal, the Dead Sea is not a true rift lake, as the rift underneath it did not fully form it. What we have here is the so-called Dead Sea Transform. This is a geologically complex area where tectonic plates interact in many ways. Some of the world's most famous rift lakes include the ones found in the rift valleys in the East African Rift, simply referred to as the Rift Valley Lakes. These lakes stretch from Ethiopia to Malawi. These lakes are known to be sites with...
Wait, is this AI speaking? Malawi?
These lakes stretch from Ethiopia to Malawi. These lakes are known to be sites with incredible biodiversity.
Guys, if this is AI speaking, it's getting way too good.
The lakes present here,
because I honestly did not recognize it at all until I think right here. Instead of Malawi,
include freshwater lakes like Lake Baikal, as well as saltwater soda lakes similar to the Dead Sea. These Rift Valley lakes is Lake Tanganyika. It is a lake that shares its shores along the coastlines of Burundi, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Tanzania, and Zambia. It is also home to hundreds of endemic species of cichlid fish, like many other freshwater Rift Valley lakes. On the other hand, Lake Natron in Tanzania is one of the shallow, alkali-rich soda lakes of the East African Rift. It has a beautiful red color due to the pink salt-loving bacteria that live in the salty water and not the geology of its rocks. Another lake worthy of note is Lake Malawi. Also called Lake Nyasa or Lake Nyasa, it is the third deepest freshwater lake in the world. Lake Malawi lies in the southern end of the western arm of the East African Rift Valley. Its basin is densely populated and has a high prevalence of waterborne diseases. With about 800 to 1,000 fish species, it also has the richest fish species of any lake in the world. As the East African Rift continues down its path of dividing Africa, the region has grown in its perceived importance to all stakeholders. From geologists to ecologists and the government, everyone is keeping tabs on what is going on in the Rift Valley. It has gained a level of importance for understanding how human evolution played out in the past. There have been many hominid fossils discoveries with the rift, and it has been nicknamed the cradle of humanity. With many paleoanthropological discoveries, scientists are currently thinking about how the rift's evolution might have played a major role in our development as a species. Some of these discoveries include Lucy, a hominin skeleton unearthed in Ethiopia that is over 3 million years old. There also is the Turkana boy, an almost 2 million years old hominin skeleton discovered in Kenya. Many experts believe that the structure and evolution of the East African Rift led to the creation of an environment that was ideal for the proliferation of life. Also, the presence of a rift would have made East Africa more sensitive to climate change. This would have led to alterations between wet and dry seasons. This pressure from the environment could have helped drive our ancestors to become bipedal and brainier as they sought to adapt to these climatic changes. The East African Rift System is a complex system of rift segments that help us understand how continents break apart and oceans form. But it is also much more than that. The East African Rift Valley is also a potential power source due to the volume of volcanic and tectonic activities going on there. In fact, the United Nations Environment Program is currently working on a geothermal energy program that would take advantage of this. The planned program would convert the heat created by the Rift Valley's underground activity into electricity through a series of steam wells.
That would be good if that power could be used locally.
According to estimates, a single well would have the capacity to produce enough power for 5,700 homes. If successful, this program would provide a sustainable energy
That would definitely work locally.
source for millions of people, many of whom do not have access to electricity today.
Right.
While this
Right.
is a good thing, the very same volcanic and tectonic changes have been known to cause undesirable situations for people in the region, with a rising water level the least of their problems. With oil discovered around one of the lakes, there might be another chapter in the story of Africa's division by land mass. The intense
Right.
malnutrition and poverty level of the people living in the regions, coupled with the unpredictability of an active rift, with all its volcanic and tectonic irregularities,
And all types of diseases and parasites in the water.
lie in contrast to the excitement of scientists. While Africa might not split into two or more in our lifetime,
No.
the East African Rift will be one of the most important things to shape our futures in the decades and centuries to come.
All right, guys. I will tell you right now, I never actually sat and thought that something like this was probably going to happen again. I guess if I would have actually sat and thought, I would have been like, yeah, probably. Right? I mean, listen, if we are now over here, where we are in the United States of America, Europe is there, Australia is there. I mean, obviously there has been some type of continental drift within our history. I just didn't expect, or I don't know, I just didn't. Nothing in me said that this was still going on, even though obviously it's still going on. Again, we're never going to see it. This is not something that moves fast enough. But some of the images that we did see within this documentary here showed a couple of times where they kind of are moving apart pretty fast. Because I'm thinking those are probably sinkholes, right? And they're showing us images of sinkholes while talking about rifts. Because a couple of those videos are pretty much sinkholes. But, all right, listen, you guys all have an absolutely amazing day. Let me know in the comments if you guys have encountered this before, or where I should go next for more information regarding it, okay? But yeah, you guys all have an absolutely amazing day. Enjoy your day thoroughly.